Anniversaries are meant to be days of celebration, days where two people look back at their journey, cherishing the love that brought them together. But what happens when that very day becomes a cruel reminder of how fragile love can be? My name is Clara, and I never thought that marriage, the one thing I had fought so hard to protect, would turn into a battlefield of silent wars and unspoken betrayals. On the morning of my 7th wedding anniversary, I woke up to a message from my husband that didn't say happy anniversary or I love you. Instead, it said, "Thanks for nothing." At first, I thought it was a joke. A clumsy attempt at humor. But as the hours unfolded, I realized that the message carried a truth that would shake the very foundation of my marriage and force me to make a decision that no woman should ever have to make. The phone buzzed beside me at 6:15 a.m. I stretched lazily, smiling at the thought of what the day would bring. I had planned a surprise dinner, reserved weeks in advance at a fine restaurant in Victoria Island, Lagos. I had even bought him a wristwatch he'd been eyeing for months. But the smile on my face vanished as soon as I read the message. Thanks for nothing. I sat up quickly, my chest tightening. My first instinct was confusion. Nothing? What did he mean? Was he referring to the anniversary? Was he upset about something at work? My husband, Tund, was not the type to throw words carelessly. He was precise, sometimes brutally so. I typed back, "What do you mean?" He didn't reply. Our marriage hadn't been perfect, but I had always believed we were building something solid. Tund was ambitious, a banker who often worked long hours, while I managed a small fashion business from home. I was the one who kept the house running, cooking, caring for our 2 children, handling school runs, managing bills whenever his transfers came late. But over the past year, something had changed. His calls became shorter, his words colder. He would return home late, often smelling of perfume that wasn't mine. Whenever I confronted him, he dismissed me with a wave of his hand. "Clara, stop overthinking. You're always looking for problems." Still, I stayed. I prayed. I told myself marriage was about endurance, about patience. But that text, that thanks for nothing, broke something inside me. All day, he ignored my calls. I dressed up anyway, wearing the black silk gown he once said made me look like a queen walking into her palace. I left the children with my sister and drove to the restaurant, hoping he would show up, hoping the day could still be salvaged. He arrived 30 minutes late, his face stiff, his eyes distant. He didn't hug me. He didn't even say I looked nice. Instead, he sat, scrolled through his phone, and when the waiter came, he ordered without asking what I wanted. "Happy anniversary," I said quietly, trying to meet his eyes. He looked at me, almost irritated, and said, "Clara, can we not pretend? We both know this marriage has given me nothing but stress." The words hit me like a slap. My hands trembled, but I forced a smile. Stress? Tund, I've been holding this family together while I what? He cut in sharply. While I break my back to provide? While I work endless hours so you can sit at home and play dressmaker with your friends? My mouth fell open. My business, small as it was, had kept us afloat many times. When his investments failed. When his salary delayed. But he didn't see that. Or maybe he chose not to. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "You think I've done nothing?" He leaned back, smirked, and whispered, "Thanks for nothing, Clara." That's exactly how I feel. I wanted to scream, to throw the food in his face, to demand why he had grown so cruel. But something inside me went silent. Like a candle blown out in the wind. We ate in silence. He scrolled through his phone, smiling at messages that weren't mine. That night, when I got home, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I simply sat at my work table in the small corner of the living room where I designed clothes. The sound of my sewing machine had always been my therapy, my escape. And as I stared at the half-finished fabric in front of me, something became clear. I had been pouring everything into this marriage, my time, my love, my sacrifices, while slowly losing myself. Maybe he didn't see my worth. But I did. So, I took out a sheet of paper and wrote, "Dear Tund, since you feel I've given you nothing, I resign from being your wife. I resign from being your unpaid maid, your unappreciated partner, your silent supporter. From today, I am choosing myself." It wasn't just a letter. It was my liberation. The next morning, I placed the letter on his bedside table before leaving to drop the kids at school. When I returned, he was sitting in the living room, the letter crushed in his hand, his face red with rage. "Clara, what nonsense is this?" he barked. I stood at the doorway, calm. "It's not nonsense, Tund. It's my resignation. Since you believe I've done nothing, I'll stop doing anything at all." He stood up, his voice rising. "So you want to destroy this family because of your childish emotions? You want to throw away years of marriage just like that?" I laughed bitterly. "Years of what, Tund? Of me giving and you taking? Of me sacrificing and you mocking? If this is marriage, I don't want it anymore." His eyes darkened. For a moment, I thought he would hit me. But instead, he stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. That night, he didn't come home. In Nigeria, when a marriage starts to crumble, it doesn't just belong to the couple. It becomes public property. By the second week, whispers had already started. On, did you hear? Clara and Tund are fighting. They say she wants to leave him. But she has children. Oh. Where will she go? The weight of society's eyes pressed on me. My mother called, begging me to endure. "Marriage is not sweet every day, my daughter. Don't disgrace us." But my father, quieter, simply said, "If a house is burning, you don't sit inside just because people are watching. You get out." His words became my anchor. One evening, while sorting laundry, I found a receipt tucked into Tund's trouser pocket. It was from a jewelry store, an expensive necklace, bought 2 weeks earlier. My heart pounded. He hadn't bought me jewelry in years. I waited until he returned that night and asked, holding up the receipt. His eyes darted, his jaw tightened. "Why are you going through my things?" "Who is she, Tund?" I whispered. Silence. The kind of silence that tells you the answer you dread is true. That was the night I stopped calling him my husband in my heart. Marriage is not supposed to feel like a prison, yet that's exactly what mine had become. With every passing day, Tund's contempt grew louder and my silence heavier. But silence can only last so long. The thanks for nothing text was no longer just an insult, it was a mirror, showing me the emptiness of what we had become. And as I prepared to take the boldest step of my life, I knew one thing for certain: sometimes, resigning is not defeat. Sometimes, it's survival. But survival comes with a price. And I was about to pay it. The discovery of that jewelry receipt gnawed at me like a wound that refused to close. Every time I looked at Tund, I saw not just a husband, but a stranger whose secrets were poisoning the air we shared. For days, I kept quiet, watching, observing. He would leave home earlier than usual, return later, sometimes not at all. His excuses were clumsy: late meetings, traffic, work stress. But his shirt collars told different stories: faint lipstick stains, traces of perfume that reeked of betrayal. One Friday night, I decided to follow him. I parked a short distance behind his car as he drove through the busy streets of Lagos. He wasn't heading to the office. He wasn't heading to any client meeting. He stopped at a restaurant in Lekki, and as I sat trembling in my car, I saw her, tall, light-skinned, elegantly dressed. She stepped into his car with a smile that once belonged to me. It felt as though someone had ripped my chest open. I didn't confront him that night. Instead, I drove home in silence, my fingers gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. But in my heart, I knew, this was no longer just emotional neglect. It was betrayal. The next morning, I prepared his breakfast as usual. Yam, eggs, and tea, his favorite. When he sat down at the table, I placed the plate in front of him, then slid the jewelry receipt across the table. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice calm, almost cold. He froze, fork halfway to his mouth. His eyes darted from the receipt to me. "Clara, don't start." "Don't start?" My voice cracked. 7 years of marriage, 2 children, countless sacrifices, and you sit here, buying jewelry for another woman? He sighed, leaning back, his face hardening. "Maybe if you weren't always nagging, always acting like a martyr, I wouldn't need someone else to make me feel alive." The words cut deeper than any blade could. "You needed someone else?" I whispered. "After everything I've given you?" "Given me what?" His voice rose. "Clara, I work myself to the bone while you parade around calling that sewing hobby a business. You've done nothing for me. Nothing." And there it was again, nothing. That word, sharp and cruel, echoing in my ears. But instead of tears, I felt an eerie calm. I stood, pushed my chair back, and said, "Then consider me officially resigned. From today, Tund, you are on your own." I packed a bag that afternoon. Just essentials, clothes for the kids, documents, my sewing machine. My sister welcomed us with open arms, no questions asked. Tund called once, his voice laced with anger. "Clara, don't make this mistake. Think about your children. Think about your reputation. Do you want people to laugh at you as the woman who couldn't keep her home?" I almost laughed. The only mistake I made was staying too long. After that, he stopped calling. But the silence he left behind wasn't heavy anymore. It was liberating. For the first time in years, I could breathe. Walking away wasn't easy. The nights were cold, the whispers of neighbors cruel, and the weight of single motherhood terrifying. But deep down, I knew I had chosen dignity over humiliation, self-respect over constant pain. And yet, endings are never that simple. Because just when I thought I was free, life had one more twist waiting for me, one that would test my strength more than Tund ever had. 3 weeks after I left, I was beginning to rebuild my life. My fashion business was small, but I poured myself into it like never before. Orders started coming in, mostly from women who admired not just my designs but my courage. For the first time, I felt useful, not as someone's wife, but as me. Then one evening, Tund showed up at my sister's house. He looked disheveled, his once polished suits now wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He stood in the doorway, holding a plastic bag of fruits, the kind of half-hearted gift Nigerians bring when they're ashamed but too proud to admit it. "Clara, we need to talk," he said. My sister gave me a worried glance, but I nodded. We stepped outside. He took a deep breath. "I made a mistake. The woman, she's gone. She was just a distraction. Please, come back home. The children need you. I need you." I stared at him, searching his face for sincerity. For years, I had begged for these words, dreamt of him choosing me, valuing me. And now, here they were. But they came too late. "Tund," I said softly, "you didn't just cheat on me. You broke me. You mocked me, belittled me, made me feel like I was worth nothing. And now you want me back because the other woman left?" He swallowed hard, his eyes glistening. "People make mistakes." "Yes," I said. "But some mistakes cost too much." That night, my son, David, asked me a question that pierced my soul. He was only 8, but his eyes held the weight of wisdom no child should bear. "Mummy, is Daddy a bad man?" I froze. How could I explain betrayal to a child? How could I make him understand without poisoning him against his father? I pulled him close, kissing his forehead. Daddy is not a bad man, David. He just made choices that hurt us. But you must always remember, his choices are not your fault, or mine. My daughter, younger and more innocent, whispered, "Will we ever live together again?" Tears stung my eyes. I don't know, my love. But what I do know is that we will always have each other. That's enough. Days turned into weeks. Tent kept calling, sometimes begging, sometimes threatening. But I stood firm. The resignation letter I had written wasn't just words on paper, it was a contract with myself. A promise never to return to the version of me that tolerated disrespect for the sake of appearances. One Sunday, as I packed clothes for delivery, I realized something. For the first time in years, I felt alive. My laughter returned. My children smiled more. My sewing machine, once my escape, had become my weapon of survival. I had resigned from being a wife in a loveless marriage, but in truth, I had signed into something far greater: self-respect, independence, and peace. Looking back now, that "thanks for nothing" text was the best gift Tend ever gave me. It was the mirror that showed me how far I had shrunk in my own marriage, and the push I needed to walk away. Sometimes, life forces you to resign from roles that no longer honor you, whether it's a job, a friendship, or even a marriage. Because staying in a place where you are constantly devalued is not loyalty. It is slow suicide. So, if you are watching this and holding on to something that keeps breaking you, ask yourself, is it worth your peace? Is it worth your dignity? Because the truth is simple, resignation is not the end. Sometimes, it is the beginning of everything you were meant to be.